Tyleri am y gwahoddiad I ddod yma heddi a diolch I bawb am ddod. Yeah, thanks to Tyleri and Cavu for hosting the meeting and inviting us along today, and thanks to everyone for attending as well. So my name's Abby. I'm the project lead for St David's Day 2026 at Welsh Government. And yeah, just going to go through the slides today on the pilot support fund that is available. And Tyleri is kindly sharing the slides for me. So if we could move to the next one, please. Okay, so the First Minister decided that next year we really could elevate the celebrations for St David's Day, and the purpose of the fund is to really strengthen the domestic celebration of St David's Day and support new and innovative projects across Wales and promote traditional and contemporary Welsh culture and Welsh language and encourage inclusive celebrations really for the modern and diverse Wales that we live in. Next slide, please. Okay, so the key objectives for the fund are to showcase Welsh culture and heritage. So, for example, music, art, literature, sport, food, and the Welsh language. And we want to engage with all communities across Wales, and so encourage participation from local councils, community groups, schools, and support inclusive events which build awareness of shared Welsh identity and values. And we also want to support Welsh creatives and businesses, providing a platform for artists, performers to exhibit their work, promote local businesses, increase footfall in areas with activity, and ideally support events that will have a positive impact on local businesses as well. And finally, increase visibility nationally, and this could be through digital social media and platforms to strengthen our approach online to celebrating St David's Day and increase awareness across the country. So on the funding available, the total available is £750,000. So this is revenue only. We don't have any capital funding available, and the grants levels have been split across 3 different levels. So the small is between £1,000 and £5,000 for events, projects, or activities that have a local or neighbourhood level impact. The medium level is between £5,000 and £20,000 for regional or multi-community impact. So we've had some questions already on the medium level, with many people asking, do we mean events across multiple locations specifically with that? But with that, it could be events held across multiple locations, but it could also be events that engage with multiple communities, or potentially an event where you would expect participants to attend from a lot of different towns and communities. It could be like a larger scale event or events in multiple locations. And then the final level then is the large grant for up to £40,000 for organisations with a national reach across Wales. Next slide. And who can apply? Legally constituted organisations who are based and operating in Wales. And so there's a couple of examples on the screen there. It's not just limited to those examples. But yeah, the purpose of the fund is to deliver wider community benefits. So these are the kinds of organisations that I guess we would expect to receive applications from, but it isn't limited to just those on screen. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, so the eligibility criteria, As I said, the organisations need to be based and operating in Wales, ideally with previous experience in delivering events or digital projects, and organisations who have governance, safeguarding, inclusion and equality policies in place. Okay, and we've given some examples of the type of projects we could support, such as, indoor-outdoor events like twmpaths, performances in live music venues, workshops, markets, Welsh language-focused events, digital storytelling and cultural content. Obviously, these are just examples. There are lots of other events that could be supported as well. Project requirements. The activities must take place between the 16th of February and the 6th of March. So we've included the week before and the week after St. David's Day to incorporate potentially half term as well, and anything that might run over. That doesn't mean to say any planning or capacity building activities can't occur before that date, but the events that celebrate St. David's Day need to occur within that time frame. And digital projects need to launch by the 16th of February. The projects must treat Welsh no less favourably than English. Obviously, Welsh Government, we've got strategic aims and the target of reaching 1 million Welsh speakers. So, yeah, we'd like projects to show how they encourage the use of Welsh language and promote the ability for people to use the Welsh language in their events. We also encourage an inclusive and diverse approach as well to projects, events and activities. Examples. Here are some examples of costs that could be covered. Just a reminder, so it is revenue only. So this could be things like event hire, event costs, participant costs, venue hire, marketing, translation, and fees for speakers, artists, trainers, things like that. And then ineligible costs, anything related to capital purchases, core staff costs, except for the third sector, any existing programs, VAT, legal fees, and anything that promotes political or faith promotion as well. So some key dates in this slide. So the deadline to receive applications is midday next Friday, the 14th of November. Any applications received after this time would not be considered. There is an application form online. Hopefully you'll have seen it or have had the link to it already, but the application form needs to be submitted by email to the email address on screen, and it is on the Welsh Government web pages as well. So once we've received all applications and assessed them, we aim to respond and let successful and unsuccessful projects know by the 19th of December. So we're aiming to get decisions out before Christmas so that planning can sort of start as soon as possible for the events next year. And then just a little bit on the assessment criteria. So there are guidance notes online, and Annex 1 right at the end of the guidance note sets out what the application will be assessed against. So those are the bullet points there. So the strategic fit and how the project supports the objectives of the fund, project quality and engagement, and the risks, implementation, delivery, and the costs and value for money as well. And the grant conditions. So as Welsh Government standard for grant schemes, payments are made in arrears. So after the events are held, the organisations would send a claim in, attaching invoices and evidence of costs, and then the payment is made afterwards. Appreciate there may be a lot of third sector organisations on the call, so third sector organisations may request an advance payment, There is a form that would need to be filled out with evidence of need attached to that as well. So it would be helpful, I guess, if you do think that you'll need payment in advance, to maybe highlight that in the covering email with your application, or note it on the application form somewhere. That would be helpful for us to bear in mind. It doesn't affect or impact your application. It just helps us to note that there may be an additional step in the process if you're successful. And the grant may be reclaimed if misused. So, for example, if you, in your application, you apply for certain things and then it's spent on other things, then the Welsh Government could claim that back. But hopeful that that won't be the case in any of these projects. But... Okay, so there's a very quick run through of the overview of the scheme. I guess is now probably a good time to accept questions before I pass over to Gwenno. So Gwenno's been working with us on the development and the design of the fund. So she's been working on St David's Day celebrations for over 20 years. So I think if I answer questions on the scheme and the overview, if anybody's got any, and then pass on to Gwenno, if that's okay. So yeah, does anybody have any questions to ask?
Rebecca, straight away.
What do you class as capital costs? So, for example, if a group wanted to put on some sort of performance, but they needed to buy possibly a portable speaker system or microphones, lighting, anything like that, that is not a fixed item, but would that still be classed as capital?
You happy for me to come in on this?
Yeah.
You've frozen the song on your screen. Yeah, that would be considered capital. You can obviously rent revenue costs for renting equipment would be eligible, but purchase of equipment, movable equipment, anything that's sort of deemed as an asset is not eligible within the fund.
Can I expand on that a bit more then? Have you got an actual classification? Because again, if you're looking at art projects, the items that the groups would normally purchase for the art project, would that be as their physical items?
So revenues like sort of expenditure, like sort of papers and things that are, wouldn't have a value beyond the life of the project, could be deemed as revenue potentially, but I'd need to see more detail on the types of expenditure. But generally, physical assets that are bought that have a value beyond the life of the project would be seen as capital. So purchase of equipment, cameras, things like that, it would definitely be coming under capital and not eligible in the fund.
Okay, thank you.
Diolch, Steffan, ateb y cwestiwn. Thank you for Steffan answering. Oes unrhyw cwestiwn eraill dan rhywun? Any other questions? Yeah, Nigel?
Unmute, right. Something similar. I appreciate that sort of if you're buying a digital projector or something, obviously that can be used afterwards. If you were putting on an exhibition and you needed to make materials for that exhibition, framing pictures or something like that, would that count as capital, or is that revenue because it is actually the materials? You get the same thing with a performance. If you needed stage materials, sets or something like that, would that sort of thing count as revenue or capital?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
The sound is very low, so I think I caught your question. You were talking about sort of props for a stage. Is that right?
Props, exhibition materials. So framing pictures or something for an exhibition.
So again, I'd have to see in detail, but a general rule is, so for exhibitions, you can include that as revenue, if it's for that one one event, and can't be reused and transported and reused for other things. you could use that as revenue. But if it was something that was actually a physical kind of feature that could be taken to future events, that's normally classed as capital, and we capex that.
So basically what we could do, if say we wanted to make up an exhibition of paintings of St. David or something, so long as we throw the paintings out afterwards, then we'd get funding because it's revenue. But if we kept them so they could be re-exhibited the following year or something, then it wouldn't qualify. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a difficult one, really, because I would think that was quite low level and could be classed as revenues in terms of the promotion of the day. You know, meeting the criteria, as Abby said at the start of the presentation. So I'd be happy to look at and argue that case, defend it as being revenue. But if you know, as a general rule, if you look at things like buying equipment, purchasing of equipment that over a certain value, which then retains a value, rule that kind of items of expenditure out, use that as a rule of thumb. And anything like consumables, I would say, anything else around consumables, around developing the project or the event, we could use in as potentially look at as revenue. But again, when you're building your application, all these sort of questions, you can come back to us on email to clarify if you've got more detail. It probably quite take a long time if we went through everyone's ideas of expenditure lines at this presentation, but we'd be happy to go into more detail on email over this.
Another question?
Yeah, do you want to ask another question, Nigel?
I've not had a chance to look at the application form yet.
Oh, is Nigel frozen?
Hello?
Hello, yeah, you're back with us, Nigel.
Yeah, I'm back. How much detail and precision is needed in the application? For instance, we're thinking of having a concert of some sort over the weekend, but we don't have definite bookings, we don't have definite prices yet. All we know is that we would like to do a concert, the sort of thing we would like, and a guideline of the sort of money we might be spending on it. Are you expecting detailed, precise figures in the application, or is it very much £1,000 to organise a concert?
Do you want me to answer that, Abby?
Yes, if you can.
Yes. So obviously, this is a light touch application form. I know some people will probably find it still a little bit too long and overcomplicated, but that's the essence of government funding, unfortunately. But we are looking at it as a light touch. Obviously, there's a scoring criteria, and the more detail you're able to give us, the better we're able to assess both for value for money, in terms of deliverables and how it meets the funding criteria. So the more detail, the better, I would stress. But in terms of expenditure and what you plan to do, the quotes would be useful and would help your application there. And obviously, we don't expect you to have the whole thing planned out when we launched it a couple of weeks ago. So draft outline costs would be really useful, and anything you've got that can really improve the quality of the application. So we're able to look at scoring it based on its quality and value for money. Hope that helps.
We've got only 3 questions in the chat. So we have 3 questions in the chat. So I'll start from the bottom up. First one is from Dewi. That's an easy one. So the turnaround of applications, pa mae'r gyflym bydd asesiadau ac ceisiadau. So am dyddiau cau wrthod nesaf, a bydd fi'n iawn i gweud Abby, right to say the deadline is next week, 14th. Applications will be notified of success by the 19th of December.
Ie, mae hwnna'n iawn. Dyna'n anelu am hwnna, cael popeth allan cyn Nadolig.
Diolch yn fawr, Abby. Diolch, Dewi.
There's another question from Faye. Mae Faye yn dod o ysgol. Os daw dyn nhw roi cais mewn, can they put an application in on behalf of a school?
Ie, so mae ysgolion yn, sorry, na I ymateb yn Saesneg. Schools are eligible, but we are expecting quite this sort of, because there is a limited amount of funding, we are expecting it to be quite competitive. So we are sort of encouraging sort of collaboration and partnership bids for the fund, because not every project is likely to be successful. So if you are looking at delivering like that wider community benefit, you know, it may be helpful to submit an application that can demonstrate that reach and impact in the community. So that's helpful.
Do you want to add a question, Faye? Does that answer your question, Faye?
Yes, it does. That's great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Cwestiwn perthnasol wedyn sy'n linked wrth Sue. Mae Sue yn gyfynnig ar y cyd â gymuned arall. Sue's hoping to do an application with numerous communities linked together. And can each community council claim £5,000 each? Or Sue, would you want to explain more about the project and not project, but your idea? And there will be one lead applicant.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Yeah, we're actually looking at potentially working with Eddie, who's on the call here. Really amazing idea, but you know, because of the limit on the funding, you know, it's up to 5k for the community council. It would be sort of, I think, make it even better if we worked with another community council further up the coast. And I just wondered how that would work, whether it would be our project as Aberporth Community Council, or if we worked with another community council, we could put in a joint bid and claim those monies, or would it all have to go through us?
I think there would need to be a lead organisation if there is like a partnership or collaboration. So the lead organisation would be our main point of contact and the grant recipient. So that would need to be reflected in the application, I guess. If there are costs to both organisations, then that would need to be managed by the lead organisation. So were you questioning as well, like whether you could apply for more than the small amount?
More than, you know, the up to 5k, because, you know, the project we're thinking is possibly a bit more ambitious. So if we were working with another community council, would that then qualify as a regional? You know, is regional sort of county-wide or larger than that?
Yeah, so it could mean events in multiple locations or events that reach multiple communities. So if you're expecting, obviously, if you're cutting across different areas, then I imagine that would have sort of a wider multiple community impact. So so we can't really advise on sort of individual projects criteria. But I think in the guidance it does say as well, if your project, maybe see if I can find the exact wording, application requests below or over the guideline threshold may be considered. So if you put in if the application demonstrates the need as well and that reach, then you would consider it on the basis of the application.
Okay, diolch.
O'n i gwybod y cwestiwn ti, Steph, so Steph, dyna ôl i cwestiwn ti.
Shwmai, Steph reis fi. Fi'n gweithio i Mentoriaeth Ceredigion. So I work for Cwrdd Mentoriaeth Ceredigion, also we're part of Ceredigion Council. Now, having looked at the application form in quite detail and quite some detail, and the information, the supporting information, you know, the two keywords possibly are new and innovative, or arloesol yn Gymraeg. Now, as we have been over the last decade, I suppose, we've been supporting different St. David's Day parades and other local committees with organising various activities and events. Obviously, a lot of these groups do find it quite difficult to organize these events and make some sort of profit. Some of them are really struggling financially to maintain these activities. So what would your advice be to those committees who are looking at this grant and thinking, oh, is this a means of sustaining our successful parade for another year? Or is it purely for those communities that don't have St. David's Day parades at the moment? How far do you take those words new and innovative? Is this something that could be, bolted on to an existing parade, perhaps? Could an existing parade just make an application for this grant to, run their parade again this year? Could you elaborate a bit more on what you mean by new? And I say innovative. I haven't looked at the information in English, so I don't know what the exact word you're using, but arloesol yn Gymraeg.
Yeah, so with I guess like you said in the guidance and things, the grant is intended to support new projects. I guess existing programs that are already underway and they're already in train, I guess, and not eligible, but it doesn't necessarily exclude activity that has taken place before. But ideally there would be sort of a clear and demonstrable new element to the project. Like, are you reaching a new community? I guess the pre-rainy dog did say as well that she would like to reach communities that maybe typically don't engage with St. David's Day. But yeah, if it aligns with the fund's objectives and introduces a new element to the proposal, then sorry, Steph, did you want to come in on that?
Just to re-emphasize what you said, really. So if an event or activity has taken place last financial year, but hasn't been sort of approved and in train, like Abby said, already this year, then there's no reason to say that why you couldn't present a project application to continue with that. What we don't want to see is bolting on funding from this budget for projects that are already underway, for already being committed, and have that funding package in place to boost it, or to basically accelerate it, if you like, in terms of its budget. This program is for either taking place before and have a proven track record, or new and exciting applications that haven't been received funding before, and to take them forward. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And obviously the key point that one of you raised earlier is the fact that the fund is going to be very competitive as well. So not to exactly think that we're going to get £5,000, but perhaps, be a bit more reasonable and go for half that.
Yeah. One thing I will stress as well is that, especially if you're looking at partnership, the tiers that we've developed are not strictly just because you're a local community organisation. Doesn't mean you have to go for that one first tier up to 5,000. So the tiers are based on your impact, your regional coverage. I think Abby went through them earlier on in the presentation. So just want to emphasise that just as a single organisation within one community group or area, you're not limited to go in for that first tier of funding. It depends very much what the project activity is, its reach and its benefits. I hope that makes sense. We're encouraging applications from all those thresholds, basically.
Thank you, Steph. Steph. Does dim un cwestiynau'r chat? Os ydw rhywun arall cwestiwn, mae'n Holly? There aren't any more questions in the chat, but anyone else would like to ask a question before we move on to Gwenna's next few slides? No. Abby, Gwenna, chi'n hapus i ni ddim ymlaen i slides nesaf? So your hands clear.
Yes.
Talk. Share. Ydyn nhw'n rhannu na di? Ifan ar sleid chi am Gwenno.
Hello, pawb. Hello, everybody. My name is Gwenno David, and I have been working voluntarily for the last 20 years on developing new traditions for St. David's Day. This all came about because I was taking part in the very second National St. David's Day Parade in Cardiff. The first one I wasn't even aware of, and I'm going to call it the NSDDP from this point onwards because it's too much of a mouthful. Anyway, so I was taking part in the very second NSDDP in 2004, and I had an idea, and it struck me like a bolt of lightning outside Cardiff Market, that we needed an anthem, a song that could be sung by choirs, by children, by anybody leaving Wales, by choirs, the whole lot. So I came up with an idea, and as I was ringing a bell at the time, a metal bell which had been made by Dave Peterson, I wrote some words in Welsh and in English called Cenwch y Clychau I Dewi, ring out the bells for St. David's. And the first photograph here shows Heilwen Thomas, who wrote the music, Dave Peterson, who made the bell, and myself. And that was the very first time that we sang Cenwch y Clychau, ring out the bells. The second picture here is when Cenwch y Clychau was launched in public. It was launched in the Pierhead building by Arglwydd Dafydd Ellis Thomas, by Lord Dafydd Ellis Thomas. That was in 2008. And here you have, all of these are original ideas by myself. And I came up with the idea of presenting schools with a little cup, which would be called Gnewch y Pethau Bychain. Cwpan Gnewch y Pethau Bychain. Do the small things cup, because we're often giving a lot of kudos to children who are the best of class, best runner, best whatever. But we very rarely give kudos to that child who is kind, who helps people and does the small things. So Lord Dafydd Ellis Thomas launched that again in 2008. Can we go to the next one? Now, these are again another idea of mine. These are county banners, and I've been hassling Steph for a while to try and get one for Ceredigion. These are 3 county banners which developed from 2007, I think it was, onwards. This is the very first one, Pembrokeshire banner, which and all of these have very similar elements and symbols. They're all based on the words and the symbols of the St. David's Day song. I'm not allowed to call it the anthem, although I do, and it has become an anthem by now. But it's called Cenwch y Clychau I Dewi. You'll see there, Cenwch y Clychau I Dewi, and again here, Cenwch y Clychau I Dewi. And they have various symbols and elements that are specific to the areas where they represent. Now, the Pembrokeshire banner has been used in countless parades in Pembrokeshire. Also, the Pilgrims Parade in St. David's. This year, it was paraded at the front of the parade into Pembroke Castle, which I'll tell you about later on. This is the Carmarthenshire banner, also used for many years in the parade in Carmarthen. This one is the Montgomeryshire banner, which was kept for some time in Owain Glyndwr's Parliament building in Maenclochog, sorry, no, in Machynlleth. Right, onwards and upwards. So, as a result, can we go to the next picture? Okay, as a result of tremendous growth in the NSDDP, because I became the children's officer and I managed to get 1,500 people onto one of the parades. They'd started off, there were a couple of hundred people, but with the children on board, I managed to get 300 kids on one of the parades. And then, so we went into a partnership with the Assembly at the time and also Cardiff City Council. And in 2008, I was up in Liverpool with my daughter celebrating her GCSEs, and we saw this giant, and she's called Hey Jude, and she's the Liverpool giant, and that was in 2008. And in 2012, voila, we had the Cardiff Giants. Now, 2014 This is the very first school banner, again based on the words and elements of the St David's Day song. Cenwch y clychau Dewi, ei ddwlo yn iachau, Diani roedd yn high. Again, we have the bees, which are a very strong element of St David. Cenwch nhw ar hyd y wlad, and then also the bells on the bottom of the banner. Here we have something I've been promoting for many years, which is for schools to create school banners by the children, small enough that they can carry them around the schoolyard. So they carry the banners, school banners, class banners, and they do a parade around the outside of the school, and then they sing the St David's Day song as they come into the school, where they have their usual Eisteddfod. Right, next pictures. So here we have Heilwen and I commissioned Eilir Owen Griffiths to make 3 versions of the song, and this is where the choir manuscripts for SATB, mixed choir, TTB, SSA, and piano and voice, and they were published by T-Kelv in the Millennium Centre. Now, here's another tradition that I started on my own. It hasn't developed very, very far, but it will. This is what I'm hoping to do now over the next few years. And I call it Summik Singing. And basically, I did this in 2021. Here I am on top of Wyddfa, Snowdon. And the 4 songs that I'm trying to develop are Cenwch y clychau I Dewi, Ring Out the Bells of St David's, Calon Lan, Sosban Fach, and the Welsh National Anthem, and then we fly flags on the top of mountains. Another tradition which I've created, which has become very successful, is called Daffy Dipping for Dewi. So as you can see, we wear the daffodil hats. We sing Cenwch y clychau, Calon Lan, Sosban Fach, and the National Anthem, whilst we go for a nice little dip on St David's Day. This was the very first one in White Sands Bay in St David's. Then we did another one a couple of days later in the Blue Lagoon in also North Pembrokeshire. Since then, there have been about 10 daffy dipping, and it's becoming quite popular, and I'm trying to persuade lots of people to do that one. Okay, next picture. Now, this year I organised with 2 other women, Rhian Cowan, who is here, and Anne Mortensen. We managed to organise a parade into Pembroke Castle. It was the very first time that we'd managed to get a parade into Pembroke Castle. There were about 150 kids who came along. The Pembrokeshire banner was at the front of it. We had a Twmpath dance there. It was great fun. And so that's Rhian Cowan. She's from Pembroke Town team. Anne Mortensen, she also carried the banner with me, and we had music and we had a lot of fun. And next photo, please. Oh, well, actually, I skipped the thing where we had a big Twmpath dance in the castle as well. Twmpath dance, music, we had lots of things happening, food. Now, I started a new tradition, which I'm trying to get throughout Wales this year, which is called Bells at 12. And at 12 o'clock on the dot, I shouted out, Cenwch y clychau Dewi, ring out the bells for St David. The kids had been invited to bring along their bells, and they rang out their bells like fury, made lots and lots and lots and lots of noise, and basically we all had a lot of fun. Then I sang the St David's Day song with a harp, and we had a good time. Now this year, on February the 2nd, I think it was, I wrote an email to Eluned Morgan saying, look, I've been working on this lot for the last 20 years. There's amazing stuff happening in Wales, but there's nowhere where everybody can find all of this information. Anyway, as a result of that email, Eluned Morgan sent me an email back saying, yes, we're going to do something about this. And this is a picture of Eluned Morgan when I was singing in Fishguard in the Jemima Nicholas activities, which I'd co-written a song to sing for Jemima Nicholas celebrations. And Eluned Morgan came over and she told me that there was going to be £1 million fund for St David's Day activities, which I was absolutely over the moon with. And I was even more over the moon when she said to the woman who has her office in Haverfordwest, this woman has single-handedly transformed the way that we do St David's Day activities throughout Wales. Now, obviously, I've not just been doing these things, I've also been promoting all of these things. I've been talking to people, I've been trying to encourage other people to do things. All the publicity I've managed to generate has been very, very important in enabling other celebrations to happen. For example, 3 major parades in Wales are, as Steph mentioned, Aberystwyth. Also, the one in Pwllheli is huge, or was huge, and due to lack of funding, it's no longer going to continue. Carmarthen is also doing major stuff, and also the Mentor Iaith have been really, really key and crucial in developing all of these activities. And I went to Aberystwyth to do a coaching session, because in my day-to-day work, when I get a chance to do it, I work as a leadership and master public speaking coach, and I do courses on networking, public speaking, etc., etc. And I was invited by Emily to come to Aberystwyth in 2014 to do a presentation on a networking event, which I did, and then afterwards asked if I could do a presentation on all the activities going on in Wales, which I did, and I showed this. And from that point onwards, the Mentor Iaith became really key in developing lots of parades throughout Wales. And by now, I believe there are around 25 parades. So keep going. And the last photograph that I want to show you is the actual launch of the £1 million fund, which was held in Maesteg Town Hall. And there you see Eluned Morgan. The children there sang the St David's Day song, and they sang also the St David's Day anthem. I've been working flat out for I don't know how long really, since this fund was announced. I've got 10 days work on this, which I've surpassed. However, I am available should anybody want me to help out with their projects in future for a cost, obviously, because every hour I spend on St David's Day activities is an hour away from my own work. So I hope this has inspired you. I am passionate about developing St David's Day activities throughout Wales, as you can see, and I hope that you are inspired to actually come up with your own ideas, because we have an opportunity here to really make St David's Day activities really something huge in Wales. And I can only thank Eluned Morgan for listening to me and my hassling, and all the other people who've been involved in this project. I think it's going to be incredible. So be enthused, get your ideas in. And I know it's very short notice, and a lot of people have said this to me, but try, because if you don't try, you don't get. And if you don't ask, you don't get either. And that's always been my motivating factor. So pob lwc I chi gyd. Really have fun doing all of this, because I have had fun over the last 20 years and more. So just get on with it.
Diolch yn fawr chi Gwenno.
Right, so.
Syniad gwahanol iawn lawr ffordd, Dedi a Sue. So fi'n siŵr bod chi'n, os bydd cael gais mewn, bydd rhywbeth chi'n rhywbeth newydd i chi i lluniau chi. So I know there's a new idea down now proposed with Eddie and Sue. So if they get the application in, then it's proved to be a different picture for you to show next time. So diolch yn fawr. Os unrhyw cwestiynau, has anyone else got any questions? Yeah, Nigel?
Yeah, just a slightly complication. One of the things we're looking at of doing as part of the package of sort of celebrating over the weekend is running a gig of some sort, get an entertainment community hall, doing a mix of very Welsh material and so on. How do we handle charging? Because, I mean, in a way, it would be nice to say this is an inaugural festival. It's a free concert, generously funded by the Welsh Government. How would it work if we charged a £5 at the door for people and, well, basically raised some money as a result of it? Obviously, I mean, it's nice and simple if you're putting on a free event and a free activity, something where you are paying a performer and there's no income from it. But how would it stand if any of the activities generated an income? Because I'm particularly thinking of what we want is if this works and it is popular, people enjoy it, it would be nice to think we can start doing it as a regular annual activity on some scale or another, rather than just sort of, okay, we're offering leek soup in the cafe sort of thing. But it wouldn't be a good test of popularity if this year we said people can come in free and the place is full, but then in the future it had to be self-funding. We'd have to charge a tenner and we got 6 people coming along. So charging to an extent this year would help to gauge the popularity for the future. So how will that work? Can you charge and raise money? And if you do, what happens to it?
Yeah, Abby or Nicola, are you able to answer the question? Oh, Abby, you're still on mute.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
I think, well, Abby, I don't know if you want to take the question, but I think it's just to reiterate that this is a pilot fund and there will be some level of monitoring and evaluation of how it went post St. David's Day, looking at the reach and the impact of all the different projects. But also fair to say that obviously we've got the elections coming up in May and we can't make any commitments budget-wise until we know what the case is post-May. But as a pilot, the word pilot would suggest that, if successful, we would like to run something similar again, but just can't make any commitments at this time. I don't know if you've got anything more to add to that, Abby?
Yeah, I guess on the charging and generating income, unfortunately Steph is sort of our finance guru and she's had to drop off the call. But I know that the guidance does say that sort of projects shouldn't solely enhance operations and profitability of one organisation or business. So I guess maybe that's one we'd have to take away and come back to if we can, if that's okay, if we send a reply to Larry and she can share that with you.
And also, Abby, I know you're producing a sheet of frequently asked questions, so maybe this could be one on that sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steph, do you want to hold your question?
More of a point than or an offer of help there's some faces here that I haven't seen in years, Nigel's face being one, Shwmai. But just in terms of Cwrdd and how we might be able to help community groups, especially around Ceredigion, with developing plans for St. David's Day. We're always here os oes rhywun eisiau cymorth a sgwrs datblygu eich cynlluniau chi, if you want to develop your plans, especially with getting the Welsh language element and promoting use of the language, contact us. Email address will be in the chat in a second, cwrdd@ceredigion.gov.uk.
Diolch fawr ti, Steph. Bydda i yn e-bost o pawb yn dilyn sesiwn prawn yma gyda copi o'r slides, ffurflen adborth i chi, a hefyd link i'r Cynulliad Cymru, a hefyd bydd allai cynnwys link i Cwrdd mewn hefyd. So after today's session, I will be sending out the copy of the slides, evaluation, feedback form for you, a link to the specific grant application on Washcombe website, and I'll include the link to Cwrdd as well. So, are there any questions? Unrhyw cwestiynau eraill? A fi'n disgwyl mlaen i path o banner gall mae'r ar Merched y Fawr cynhyrchu dros Ceredigion. So, gyda hynny eiriau, diolch yn fawr i chi gyd am gwrando ni am yr awr diwetha. Diolch yn arbennig i Abi, Steph, Nicola a Gwenno am cyflwyno ateb cwestiynau. So thank you very much for everyone for listening for us for the last hour and for attending. And special thanks to Abi, Nicola, Steph and Gwenno for presenting and answering the questions. Pob lwc i chi, fi gwir yn gweithio bych chi yn rhoi cais mewn i'r cronfa dydd Gwener ysa. So hope you all will be submitting an application in by next Friday. There have been applications in submitted already, but none from Ceredigion. So we need to make sure there are at least a few from Ceredigion. So pob lwc i chi. Unrhyw cwestiynau chi am, cymryd chi am i wneud cais, cofiwch bod Cafo a Cwrdd mae'n helpu chi. So any support you need to complete the application, remember Cafo and Cwrdd are here for you. So, diolch yn fawr i chi. Thank you.